The moment I opened this so-called game, I thought it was just another weird indie horror, you know, the kind you find late at night, download just for fun, and expect a few jump scares. But from the very first second, something felt wrong. The screen didn't just load, it flickered, like an old television trying to catch a signal. And then came the static, not playful, spooky background static like you'd expect to know. This was heavy, thick, pressing into the room like it wanted to crawl under my skin. I remember leaning closer to the monitor, waiting for the usual menu screen, start, options, quit, simple, right. Except none of that showed up. Instead, bold white letters flickered across a black background, please stand by. And the strangest part, it didn't feel like a game message, it felt official. The same kind of text you'd see if the emergency broadcast system suddenly cut into your favorite TV show. I chuckled nervously, muttered something about it being a clever design choice, but the silence that followed made my laugh sound almost too loud, too out of place. No music, no eerie soundtrack guiding me into the story, just silence, and the hiss of static crawling in and out like waves. For a moment, I actually reached over to check if my headphones were broken, but they weren't. It was the game. It wanted me to sit in silence, and then something shifted. The static deepened, like it had weight. And faintly, beneath the noise, a voice slipped through, low, distorted, almost too quiet to understand. My heart skipped. I froze with my hand still resting on the keyboard, staring at the screen like maybe I'd imagined it. But then it came again, a crackle, a distortion, words forming inside the static. I glanced at my friend sitting beside me, and he leaned in too. We didn't say a word, just listened, and then, clear as day, the voice whispered, "This message is for you." I swear, my blood turned cold in that moment. It wasn't generic, it wasn't scripted to feel random, it was direct, like the broadcast knew exactly who was watching. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. My friend didn't even try, he just stared at me. Why? Died. We both sat frozen, listening as the static grew louder and then, cut out, the screen went black, 7 endless seconds passed. No sound, no image, just the reflection of my own face staring back at me in the darkness of the monitor. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a menu. It wasn't an intro. This wasn't a game welcoming us to play. It was a warning, and the first thing that appeared on screen after the blackness. That's when everything started to spiral out of control. Instead of a normal start screen, the words stayed on the screen flickering, glitching, just like an old emergency alert broadcast. Please stand by, it repeated over and over like it was looping. My heart started racing, because the longer it stayed there, the less it felt like part of a game. It was like I had stumbled onto a hijacked TV signal, like I wasn't supposed to be watching this at all. I leaned back, uneasy. My friend whispered, "Bro, this is kinda creepy," and I laughed nervously, but it wasn't funny. The room felt heavier. The glow of the screen painted our faces pale. I swear even the shadows in the corner seemed darker than before, like the static was bleeding into the air around us. And then it happened. The static shifted, like a radio dial turning on its own. A deep crackle rolled through my headphones, followed by a faint, broken sound. At first it was impossible to make out, just jagged distortion, but slowly words began to form. At first it was too low, too garbled. My friend leaned closer to the monitor, straining to hear, and then, clear enough to make both of us freeze, came the voice, "This message is for you." My stomach dropped. My laugh died before it even escaped my throat, because the way it said it, it wasn't generic, it wasn't random. It was personal. It felt like the game, or the broadcast, whatever it was, knew exactly who was sitting there in front of the screen. I whispered, "You heard that, right?" And my friend just nodded slowly, eyes locked on the words flashing across the monitor. Neither of us dared to touch the keyboard or the mouse. It felt wrong, like moving would break some kind of fragile connection and let whatever was on the other side of the broadcast know too much. The voice came again, this time sharper, almost impatient. "This message is for you." We froze. My chest tightened, every nerve screaming to shut the laptop, to pull the plug out of the wall, but I couldn't. I just sat there, trapped, watching, waiting, and then, suddenly silence. The static cut out completely, like someone had flicked a switch. The screen went black. The silence was worse than the noise. The only sound was the faint hum of my computer fan. We sat there, staring at the dead screen, our reflections barely visible in the dark glass. My friend whispered, "Maybe it crashed." But even he didn't sound convinced, and then the monitor flickered, just once. A faint light blinked behind the black, like something was waiting to load. My hand hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't bring myself to press a key. I was locked in, held captive by whatever this was. And then it returned, the static, the sound of white noise flooding the room again, but this time it wasn't empty. Buried in the hiss, I thought I could hear something else, something like breathing, slow, uneven. Like someone was standing just beyond the screen, exhaling directly into the static. I froze. My heart slammed in my chest. I knew, deep down, this wasn't a normal game. It wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. And what happened after that message? That's where everything went wrong. The screen cut to black again, and for a split second, so fast I almost thought I imagined it, something appeared, a shape, a figure, just standing there in dark. The only light came from the flicker of static, and it lit up the outline of something humanoid, its head tilted ever so slightly, like it was watching us through the glass of the monitor. I leaned closer, squinting, waiting for it to move, waiting for it to fade, anything, but it just stood there, frozen, and yet somehow I felt its eyes locked on mine. My chest tightened like invisible hands were squeezing around my ribs. I whispered, "Did you see that?" My friend didn't answer. He didn't need to. His eyes were wide, glued to the screen, reflecting the faint static glow. That's when the image glitched away, replaced by another sudden message, bold letters, stark white on black, "Do not look outside." I blinked, confused. "Do not look outside," I said under my breath, trying to laugh it off, but then I realized the game wasn't showing me a character's world. It was showing mine, because in the game, the window frames started to rattle. Glass panes shook in their wooden frames, curtains swayed in the artificial wind of the broadcast, and then, just as I looked away from the screen, I noticed my own curtains, my real curtains. They were moving, but here's the thing. My window was shut. There was no breeze, no fan, nothing. Yet the fabric shivered like invisible fingers were brushing against it. I forced out a laugh, saying, "Okay, this is creepy, right?" But my laugh was cracked, thin. My friend whispered back, "Dude, this doesn't feel like a game anymore." And deep down, I knew he was right. The sound grew louder, not just static now. There was a low hum, vibrating in my ears, in the walls, in my chest. The kind of sound you feel in your bones before you even hear it properly. My heart thudded painfully in rhythm with it. And then the static suddenly cut again. The screen stayed dark for what felt like forever. I was about to reach out and shut the laptop when the glow returned. A flicker, a flash, and then, there it was again, the figure. Closer this time, still surrounded by static, but clear enough to make my stomach drop. A tall, shadowy silhouette. No face I could see, just the tilt of its head, angled like it was listening to me. Breathe. I swore I heard something on the other side of the room, a floorboard creak. But when I whipped my head around, nothing was there. Just the quiet, just the shadows, and the feeling of being watched. I whispered, "No way this is part of the game, no way." My hands hovered above the keyboard, itching to hit escape, to close it, to end whatever this was. But before I could act, before I could even blink, new text slashed across the screen, "Do not look away." The words burned into the black, flickering in and out with the static. My heart slammed in my chest. If I looked away, would something happen? Was the game bluffing? We didn't test it. We just sat there, paralyzed, staring, waiting for something to change, and then it did, because the broadcast gave us a countdown. The words on the screen faded, and then new numbers appeared, bright, stark, cold. 10. My eyes widened. The static pulsed with it, louder each time, like a heartbeat slamming through the speakers. 9. My friend muttered, "What happens when it hits 0?" and his voice cracked like he didn't even want the answer. The countdown ticked slower than time should move. Each number felt like a hammer to my chest. 8. 7. The room seemed to vibrate with the noise, the way an old television hums if you stand too close. But this was louder. This wasn't background noise anymore. It was inside my ears, crawling into my skull. 6. I reached for the keyboard, hit escape, nothing, tried to alt-tab, nothing. My fingers moved faster, slamming the keys like I could somehow force my way out, but the broadcast had us locked in. My friend grabbed the mouse, shaking it like maybe the cursor would break free, but it didn't move. The screen had trapped us. 5. The static pitched higher. It wasn't white noise anymore, it was claws. Long, sharp claws dragging across metal, screeching inside the speakers. My teeth clenched. My shoulders tensed. My whole body screamed to shut the laptop, but I couldn't bring myself to touch it. I was afraid of what might happen if I did. 4. The lights in my room flickered, just once, a soft dimming, like the whole house had sighed. My heart jumped into my throat. My friend froze, staring at the ceiling light, then back at the screen. I whispered, no way, this is sinking with us. 3. The static sharpened into whispers. Faint, overlapping voices buried under the sound, speaking too quickly to understand, but every once in a while, one word cut through closer, watching you. 2. My chest pounded so hard I felt dizzy. My friend grabbed my arm, his grip trembling. His eyes were locked on the screen, pupils blown wide, as if he was staring not at a game, not at a monitor, but straight into something alive. And then, the screen went silent, the static cut, the numbers vanished. I leaned in, breath shallow, waiting for anything, any sign it was over or at least had reset. But that wasn't what happened. The black screen lingered heavy, suffocating, until the glow returned in a slow, agonizing flicker, and there it was, the figure, no longer far away, not faint, not hidden by static. It was right there, filling the frame, shoulders bent forward, head tilted so low it nearly touched the camera. 2 pale, blinding white eyes shone through the darkness, piercing straight through me. My stomach knotted so hard I almost doubled over. My breath caught in my throat. My friend whispered, barely audible, "It's looking at us." And before I could move, before I could even blink, the speakers came alive again. The figure spoke. The speakers exploded with distortion so sharp it stabbed into my ears. I ripped the headset halfway off, but the words cut through anyway. Jagged, broken, like they were tearing themselves out of the static, and then, buried beneath all the noise, the figure whispered, "You shouldn't be watching this." My whole body froze. My skin went cold, like ice water had been poured down my back. My friend's mouth dropped open, but no sound came out. For a full second, the room was dead silent except for those words echoing in my head. Not a fun, spooky Easter egg. Not some glitchy line of dialogue. It was a warning. I whispered almost to myself, "It's talking to us," and immediately wished I hadn't said it out loud, because saying it made it real. My chest tightened, and I swear even the shadows around the room seemed to press closer, listening. The figure twitched, its head jerking unnaturally as the screen flickered again. Static rippled across the monitor like a curtain being pulled away, and then everything changed. The broadcast didn't show the figure anymore. It didn't show a menu or a fake in-game world. It switched to footage, real, grainy, black and white footage. Like a security camera. At first, it was hard to make out. An empty street, a row of houses, headlights flickering in the distance. I leaned closer, trying to recognize it, thinking maybe it was just stock footage they'd slapped in for atmosphere, but then my stomach twisted. The street looked familiar. My friend whispered, "No way, that looks like downtown." He was right. The cracked sidewalk, the bent street sign, even the way the houses leaned just slightly to the left. It all looked like somewhere we had walked before. The static shifted again. A new scene, a school hallway, lockers stretching down both sides, fluorescent lights buzzing above. My friend's voice broke when he said, that looks like my old school. I shook my head, trying to rationalize. Maybe it was just coincidence. Maybe it was designed to feel familiar, like a trick of the mind. But then the next image appeared, and my heart dropped, because it wasn't just familiar, it was specific. It was my street. The camera panned slowly, grainy and shaky, like someone holding it in the shadows. It turned the corner, showing the row of houses, and then it stopped, dead still, staring at the very same house I was sitting in at that exact moment. I shoved my chair back so fast it scraped against the floor. My friend grabbed my arm, eyes wide, breathing fast, whispering, "No, no, this isn't possible. This isn't possible." But the footage didn't lie. The game wasn't showing me random locations. It wasn't showing me fake settings. It was showing us. It knew where we were. And then, as if broadcast was proving a point, text bled across the screen in shaking letters. "We see you." I couldn't move. My hands trembled above the keyboard. My breath came in shallow gasps. This wasn't a story anymore. This wasn't a joke. This was a threat. And then the broadcast revealed something that made my blood run cold. The broadcast flickered again, like the screen itself was breathing, and for one unbearable moment everything went quiet. No static, no whispers, no humming, just silence thick enough that I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. And then the feed came back. The grainy camera panned lower, shakily moving down the street, and stopped again. I leaned closer, breath caught in my throat. I knew this spot. I knew it. It was the corner just outside my house. The camera turned slowly, painfully slow, until finally my house filled the frame, my house, my window, the very room I was sitting in. My stomach flipped so hard I thought I'd be sick. My friend whispered, his voice breaking, no way, it can't be." But before he could finish, the camera zoomed in, closer, right up to the second floor window where we sat. The lens shook, like whoever was holding it was laughing silently, breathing heavier and heavier. I didn't think. I just slammed the laptop shut, hard. The snap of it echoed through the room like a gunshot. The screen went dark, no glow, no static, nothing. But that didn't make me feel safe. The silence was worse. My friend and I just sat there, frozen, waiting for something else to happen, waiting for a knock at the window, waiting for a voice to seep out of the air vents, waiting for something. And then in the silence, I realized something horrifying. The static was still there, faint, so faint I almost thought I was imagining it. But it was there, crawling at the edge of my hearing, like the broadcast hadn't ended at all, like it had just moved somewhere else. I whispered, "Do you hear that?" My friend nodded, eyes wide, refusing to look at the window. Neither of us dared move. We just sat there, waiting, listening, afraid that if we so much as blinked, we'd see something staring back at us from the glass. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just a game. It wasn't just some creepy indie project meant to spook people online. We had tuned into something we were never supposed to see. A signal, a broadcast. And once you see it, it doesn't let you go. I'm not exaggerating when I say, safe to say, we're never opening that game at night again, not after what we saw, not after what it showed us. But hey, if you made it this far, you're braver than us. Smash that like button before the broadcast finds you, and subscribe if you dare, because next time we're going even deeper. Whisper as the outro fades, "They're still watching."